Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another episode of Real Talk, Friday, May 3rd, 2024, on 92.5 WLSD The Vault. And if you don't know by the score, we're going to be discussing the 1998 remake of Psycho. But before we get into the show, please visit all of our social media pages. That is the Facebook, Spotify, YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram, The Other People Show. Like and subscribe. Much, much appreciated. Now, I'm sure everyone out there, they've seen the original Psycho, the Alfred Hitchcock masterpiece, starring Janet Leigh and Anthony Perkins. But a lot of people either have never heard of this remake, or if they've heard of the remake, they've never seen the remake, which is understandable. Very, very understandable. But let's get into it a little bit. A young female embezzler arrives at the Bates Motel, which has terrible secrets of its own. So basically, you know the story. Marion Crane, she works at a bank. She is going to be taking a large sum of money and putting it into a safe deposit box, waiting until Monday morning to put it into the actual bank. And she decides as she's driving to the bank with the money, I'm going to go ahead and take this money and my boyfriend and I can just run away. On her way to running away, she stops at the Bates Motel and encounters a young man named Norman Bates. And I'm sure you all can take it from there. But this remake is a very, very interesting... it's very interesting that this remake even occurred, but not only that the remake occurred, but a remake often is like a retelling of the original. This remake is unlike any remake that really has ever happened, because this remake is a shot-for-shot replica of the original Psycho. Now, there's a few minor things in it that's different, and we're going to get into that. But first, let's get into the director, Gus Van Sant. So, you may not know the name right away, but you've probably seen or heard some of the movies that he has directed. That is Drugstore Cowboy with Matt Dillon, My Own Private Idaho with River Phoenix and Keanu Reeves. You've got Even Cowgirls Get the Blues. That one has, what's her name? The lady who played Mia Wallace. Her name is just going away from me. She's in that. To Die For with Nicole Kidman. Good Will Hunting with Matt Damon, Robin Williams, and Ben Affleck. And then you've got the remake of Psycho. And then Finding Forrester in 2000, which has Sean Connery. But the cast in this new... Well, I don't even want to say new, because at this point, it's 26 years old. The remake is 26 years old. And when this remake was released, it was coming 38 years after the original. So, this movie, when it came out, like I said, it was a shot-for-shot remake. Camera angles, the dialogue, almost everything was an exact replica, except a new cast, a few minor changes, and it was in color. In the original, Marion steals, she takes $40,000. In the remake, it's $400,000. So there's a few little differences like that that are sprinkled throughout, but for the most part, it is exactly the same. But in this one, you've got Vince Vaughn as Norman Bates, Anne Heche as Marion Crane, Julianne Moore as Lillian Crane, Viggo Mortensen as Sam Loomis, William H. Macy as Detective Milton Abergast, and Robert Forrester as Dr. Simon Richmond. Now, a few facts about this film is that in the original Psycho, Sir Alfred Hitchcock wanted his opening shot to be a long and complete pan and zoom over the city into Marion's hotel room. Sadly, the technology was not yet perfected at that time, and so he was able to achieve this through like a series of pans and dissolves. But Gus Van Sant does have that tracking shot just as Alfred Hitchcock had intended. Another little interesting tidbit is during filming, Gus Van Sant brought along a DVD player and played the original Psycho, so therefore they had it as like a continuous on-set reference. When he spotted a mistake, like a door opening without a key in the original, Van Sant decided to put the same mistake into this remake. So like I said earlier, it is a shot-for-shot remake, mistakes and all. When asked why he did a shot-for-shot full-color remake, Gus Van Sant replied, "So no one else would have to do so." Which I don't, in all honesty, I don't think that's a great reason to say, why are you going to make this remake like this so no one else is going to do so? I do think that a remake, I'm not against a remake, a reimagining, or what have you. But I think if they were going to do a remake, they should have made it a little bit different than the original. You know what I mean? And like I said, in the original film, Marion embezzles $40,000 from the employee. In the new upgraded, she takes $400,000. Although the equal amount from $1960 to $1998 would have been around $181,000. So she takes about $220,000 more. The budget of this movie, and I do not understand this at all, the budget of this remake was $60 million. It made 21.4 in America, 37.1 worldwide. The Rotten Tomatoes has it at a 41%, and the audience score in IMDb is one of the lowest that we've had on this show, with a 28% audience score and an IMDb rating of 4.6, which is, I think, the lowest IMDb score that we've had on the show since we've been doing this show. And I did want to say before I forget, we have been on the air on 92.5 WLSD for 1 year. So thank you all for letting us be on the air and for messaging us and writing in and tuning in. It's a great privilege to be able to do this every week. Despite my stuttering tonight, tired, very tired, and I can tell it when trying to speak. But it's been a year that we've been on, on the station, and we are very, very appreciative to being on 92.5. So let's get into a little bit of the character and the plot of the story. Now, I think that you all mostly, would know the original plot of the story. Like I said at the beginning, Marion Crane, she embezzles $400,000 in this remake. She wants to get out of Dodge, out of town, stops at the Bates Motel. She befriends, for just a moment, a brief moment, has dinner, a late supper with Norman Bates. He's a lonely man. 12 cabins, 12 vacancies. His mother is watching over the motel from up in her house. You can see her silhouette in the window. Or so Norman wants Marion Crane to think. Now, you all know by this time that Marion Crane ends up getting murdered by Norman Bates, dressed as his mother. The whole point of this episode is not to really retell you the plot and the story, because if you know Psycho or know anything about horror movies in general, you know about Norman Bates, you know about the movie. But you don't know about this remake. But you kind of do. That's the beauty of it. You don't know about the remake, but you kind of do know about the remake, because the remake, like I said, is exactly the same. Vince Vaughn has a, this was back, you think now, Vince Vaughn is mainly known for, Wedding Crashers, The Internship, different things like this. But at the time, Vince Vaughn wasn't yet established as, a fast-talking comedic actor. Vince Vaughn broke onto the scene with a part in the Lost World, if you remember that. He also was in he played kind of a villainous role in one of his best movies, Clay Pigeons. We did that about a year ago. A little more than a year ago. He was also in Disturbing Behavior, with Domestic Disturbance, with John Travolta as kind of the bad guy in that. So Vince Vaughn wasn't yet known as these comedic roles at the time of Psycho, and I do not think he does a bad job as Norman Bates. But he does a completely different job as Norman Bates other than Anthony Perkins. And when you're doing a movie that's exactly the same as the original, something's going to seem off when you have different people playing the same character when the movie is virtually the same. Now, that's not to say that Vince Vaughn does a bad job, because he doesn't. And that's the main criticism that a lot of people say about this movie, is that everyone does a good job except Vince Vaughn, that he's miscast. Maybe he is miscast, but that's not his fault that he's miscast, and it's not any of the actors or actresses' fault that they're using dialogue from the 60s in the late 90s. It's just not going to sound realistic. And it doesn't at certain points. You've got Anne Heche as Marion Crane. She does a fine job. Some of her dialogue as well and acting comes off as wooden. But I think, like I just stated, that it's more so the dialogue than it is the actor or actress. Now, Anne Heche, she never did develop into like a huge star. But she kind of made her way in like 6 Days, 7 Nights. She had, she was in Psycho. She had a small part in I Know What You Did Last Summer. So she had these bit parts in, quite a few hit movies. and she was kind of the it girl at the moment in a way around the time, because this was it was hyped up, so I thought. I remember it being hyped up. Reading back about it in hindsight, it doesn't seem like it was hyped up from what I read, but living through this, I do remember it being hyped up, and I remember watching it on the opening night and it not being busy at all. You got Julianne Moore as Lillian Crane. Now, Julianne Moore also was in The Lost World. She was also in Assassins with Stallone. So at this point, I think at this point in her career, she was still an up-and-comer, and she was still taking whatever roles that she could get. Because when you get to a certain point in your career, you can kind of pick and choose. But she was not really at that point in her career when she was doing the Psycho movie. Viggo Mortensen, later on he was in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, A History of Violence, movies like this. William H. Macy, which it's funny for a lot of people to see him in these roles because they're used to seeing him. I think he's been on Shameless for maybe over a decade. But William Macy, he was in Mystery Men, Fargo, Psycho, so he was known as kind of this character actor in smaller independent films. And then you've got Robert Forster. He was in the original Black Hole, the Disney movie. Quentin Tarantino kind of brought him back with Jackie Brown, and then up until his death, he was kind of a third or fourth build actor who kind of brought some grounding and pizzazz to the roles. The characters, they're basically the same as the original. They all do a good job. Some of the dialogue does feel a little stilted, a little cheesy, a little stiff. But I don't blame the actor or actress in this. I do blame the dialogue, because the dialogue should have been updated into 90s dialogue, not 1960s. Because the movie takes place in the 90s. So you would think that the dialogue would be updated to take place with the time in which the movie takes place. Not the case in this film. Favorite scene, least favorite scene. I guess I could say my favorite scene or my least favorite scene are the same in the remake as it is in the original. Is the dialogue between Marion and Norman Bates in the parlor when he's talking about taxidermy and being there lonely and being his his mother's best friend, and then the very end of the movie when he's the officers and everybody's looking at him, and then a fly lands on his face and he's not even going to harm that fly. Those scenes are both standouts in the original and the remake. And you have to understand the original came out when a time when movies like this weren't accessible. They weren't mainstream. It was early enough on that Alfred Hitchcock, when he got the rights to the book, he was able to go out and buy every copy of the book before the movie came out so it wouldn't be spoiled. Because this was also one of the first times where a major character was killed off, not even halfway through the movie, which was, an homage in Scream when that happened to Casey, Drew Barrymore's character in that one. So there was a lot of these little things that worked really well in the 60s version of Psycho, that not even that it's not good in the 1998 version, but it just doesn't work. I mean, some of the camera movements, some of the angles, some of the dialogue, some of the stiff performances, they just don't work in an updated setting. But I think you could probably take a Psycho movie or a movie of that caliber in the 90s and still kind of make it today. Like, you could probably use the 90s dialogue. But what they should have done is just update the complete movie. Kind of do what they did with Friday the 13th when they remade that. Or, the horrible remake that was Nightmare on Elm Street, which was not a good film at all. Score, the music, I've played a couple different scores during this the show tonight. I played some score, the original, and I also played some of the score from Psycho 3, which I've never seen. We've got the standout track here that everyone knows. I mean, it's iconic at this point. So yeah, I think this is an iconic score. And I would assume that most people that really do know movies and know films would know what this is from. And it works just as well in the new one as it does in the old movie. So, I think it's a solid score. Now, originality, we'll have to judge this a little bit different than we do normally. This remake is not original at all. Because the remake, like I've stated time and time again, the remake is 100% the same as the new one. It's just not updated. And that's what's kind of like intriguing about it and made me rewatch it and do it again. Like go through it again. But that's also what's so frustrating about it, because you've got these characters that you already know this story. You already know how Norman, is his mother, in essence. You already know that the story of Marion Crane. So this is an opportunity that they could have used, but did not take advantage of it. Gus Van Sant was coming off of Good Will Hunting. Good Will Hunting was a smash movie. Not only breaking in, Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, getting Robin Williams the Academy Award for Best Actor, Supporting Actor. They got a screenwriting award for the screenplay. Gus Van Sant got a bump because he was the director. So he was able to basically do any project he wanted to do. And Psycho remake, 100% the same, was the project he chose to do. Why? And the reason he said, like I said, so no one else would have to. No one else was going to, Gus. You had the chance to do a remake of this. Do it differently. Do it differently. The poster, it's got, kind of a silhouette in a way of Marion kind of pushing against the glass. It's kind of a, it's kind of a hard look. They did have this poster on a lot of bus stations in the cities, and people in the cities and the bus stations complain. Let's take it down. It's an eyesore. So, right then and there, their promotion was not working at all. And I really do hate that. But I don't even know what you would do with a film like this, because, how would you really promote this as an exact repeat? So if you've already owned it, the only reason to watch it is if you like these actors or being in color. So, would I recommend this film? Yes or no? I would recommend it. And the reason that I would recommend it is because like I've stated throughout this entire review, it is a sight to behold. It does drag a little bit, and it makes you either appreciate the original, but it also makes you see that the original, for them to update it to 2024, to 1998, whatever it may be, it should have been changed, not remade exactly. But I think it's worth going and checking out because there's not another remake like this. All the remakes that I've seen of every other movie or retellings or whatever, they've been changed to some degree, but not this one. So I definitely would recommend it because it's going to be a unique experience watching the exact same movie. Huh. It really is. So that's about all I have on Psycho. I think you should. I have the DVD of it, so I'm not sure. If you rent it, I would, maybe $2.99 rental, $2.99 or less. I happen to have the DVD, and I watched it there, and I saw it. I think this was like the third time that I've seen it, and my feelings on it are the same every time. So. But anyway, next week, I think we're going to have a guest in studio. And I'm not sure what movie we're going to do. Maybe a light-hearted movie. We did House on Haunted Hill last week. Psycho this week. So we might do a, Tommy Boy. Something like that. I'm not really sure. I've not watched Tommy Boy in quite some time, so that might be, and it's come to light that they're doing a Chris Farley biopic, so maybe it might be time to do a Tommy Boy show, because it's been a long time since I've watched Tommy Boy. So I'm Adam. You've just listened to Real Talk on 92.5 WLSD The Vault. Stay tuned for another edition of the Other People's Show in just a moment.